listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring spirit name. If a person has had the dubious pleasure of being one of my shamanic students, they've heard me repeatedly say, everything expresses according to frequency. A simple statement, yet it carries the secret to reality. Frequency sets up the matrix around which realities manifest. Numbers carry frequency, a principle which stands behind sacred geometry and proving theories with formulas. Words carry frequency and are made of constituent sounds represented in many cultures by letters. Every combination of sounds creates a matrix around which a reality is formed and is the basis of blessings, curses, and incantations. Some shamanic cultures originally had no curse words in their vocabulary. I'm very mindful about calling a person a bad name. That's not to say I can't bust out with a foul explicative or two when the situation warrants, but I try not to direct it at anyone. I also shamanically break up the energy as soon as I regain control of myself. So why this vigilance? Our words as well as our thoughts carry frequency that, when used indiscriminately, can actually alter the matrix of the reality of the person it's imposed upon. If we paint another with the brush of our perceptions and labels, they run the risk of becoming it. This is why in shamanic traditions names carry so much importance. In many cultures, a child was named not by the parents, but by the omens present at their birth. The child would then carry their birth name until undergoing the rites of passage ceremonies that mark the passage from childhood into adulthood. At this point, they would choose their own public name and receive a spirit name either through a vision quest or from the shaman of the tribe. There would be a public and very formal naming ceremony directed by the medicine man or shaman that in effect dismantled the old matrix and established a new one based on the new name. The transition was achieved by engaging the power of group agreement, thus the public ceremony. Except between the person and their connection with the spirit world or the divine, the spirit name was never shared. It was believed that to do so would disempower the person and give another power over them. Even the tone of voice used when speaking a person's name affects the frequency matrix surrounding them. The point of having a spirit name is to have a frequency to align with that holds the true intention for our life. This gives us a place to anchor our reality rather than being subject to the projections of others. There's much wisdom in this practice when we look at it energetically. In our culture, when a woman takes on the surname of her husband, she is in effect energetically holding the matrix for the family to form around and for the children to come into. When my marriage came to an end, while I still had children to raise, I retained my former husband's family name until the children were older and he was preparing to remarry. I could then release the responsibility of holding the matrix for my children as they were of an age to hold it themselves. I relinquished the name to free it for him and his new wife, who could then energetically establish a family matrix between them, of which I was no part. Sometimes we feel the need to change our name. It may be that the old frequency of our given name is holding us back from who we want to become. By insisting that those around us call us by a different name, we're using group agreement to break up the old matrix and establish a new one. The concept also works in reverse. By studying a person's name, we can actually ascertain the energy matrices they are subject to and around which their lives are manifesting. Our guest this hour is SHARON Lynn Wyeth, award-winning author of Know the Name, Know the Person. She's recognized internationally as a name expert. She can determine one's strengths and challenges and the purpose of one's life by deciphering a person's name. SHARON created Neimology Science, the study of placement of letters in a name. 15 years of research, followed by 3 years of testing her theories in over 70 countries, assured her methodology held true and in different languages. She continued to develop the interpretation of names over the next 16 years, furthering Neimology Science, already impressive accuracy. After this short break, I'll introduce SHARON, and together we'll delve into the universal magic of names. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is SHARON Lynn Wyeth, best-selling and award-winning author of Know the Name, Know the Person, How a Name Can Predict Thoughts, Feelings, and Actions, and Know the Name, Know the Spirit, Discover Your Contact with God in Your Name. Her website is www.knowthename.com. SHARON, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Oh, Gwilda, it's my pleasure, especially because when you asked me and I looked at your name, it said you are a wise woman.
Well, wise maybe, but the woman part we don't know. There's other names they put on the end of that sometimes when referring to me. So, SHARON, what drew you to the study of names?
I was teaching in a school, and my brain, when I was doing the seating chart at the beginning, started making assumptions about the kids that I hadn't met yet. And so my curiosity got the better of me, and I said, okay, let's put down in writing what my brain is telling me about these kids. And when I looked at it 3 months later after getting to know the students, I was amazed at the accuracy. So then it became, how do I make what my brain, trained in patterns, being a math major and having my master's, was telling me, and how to get that patterning that my brain had picked up out consciously. And it took me 15 years, like you stated.
Wow. So basically, this is really exciting. So basically, you were subconsciously tapping into the frequency of the names, of the letters?
Well, at first it was just the whole names. And then as I started saying, but how come it acts this way in this name and not that way in that name, I literally learned to break it down into the letters and then the position of the letters, because it was like, how come the A means this in this position, but it's not doing that same thing over here? So there's actually 4 positions: first letter, middle letter, last letter, and first vowel.
So it is kind of like a math problem, isn't it?
Well, it's a puzzle, and there's patterns, but there's no math involved. So anybody can do it.
That's good to know. So you named this method you developed Neimology. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Neimology
Actually, my dad
Science.
named it. Every time he called me, I would say, wait a second, let me get this idea down on paper first. And finally he asked me, he goes, what are you always working on when I call? And I said, well, Dad, I'm figuring out these patterns and names. And he said, what are you going to call it? And I said, well, I don't know yet. I've been thinking about a lot of different things. And he said, well, it's the study of names. Call it Neimology. And I said, you can't, because you cannot trademark a common word like name. So he said, fine, use the Latin spelling, Neim, the word for name. So hence my dad named it.
Fantastic. I thought I saw Latin in there. That's amazing. That's amazing. So your dad really kind of came up with it, huh?
He did. And what was really funny, too, is that he asked me one time, he says, okay, so what is this stuff? And I said, okay, Dad, ask me about anybody that you know I don't know, but you know, and you know them well, and let me tell you about them. So he did that for 5 names in a row. And after 5, when he gave me the 6th name, I said, okay, Dad, how many names is it going to take to show you that, there's something here? Is it going to take 5? Is it going to take 50? Is it going to take 500? And he is a man of science, and he's a doctor with a photographic memory. And he said, well, it's very interesting, but I'm not going to endorse it. And I said, Dad, you don't have to. It's going to prove itself. And so I think it's highly ironic that later in life he really came to treasure it, and he named it.
That is ironic. He sounds like a brilliant man.
He is incredibly brilliant.
Yeah. So why do you think it works? What's the science behind it? How come this works?
Well, there's 2 different philosophies behind that. One is the science of somatics, which really says that we change to our frequency and whatever frequency we're hearing the most and that we identify with. And as you were stating, what frequency do we hear the most? But that of our name. And when somebody says, who are you? We answer with our name as if that says it all. And indeed it does, once you know Neimology Science. So that's one way. And the other way is religions. When there was still only 7 religions on the planet before they multiplied and divided and everybody kind of made up their own, they all agreed on some basic tenets. And one of them is that the incoming soul impresses upon the one that's going to be naming them what they want to be called, so we name ourselves. And if we're naming ourselves, again, it would fit. Or, like in some shamanic traditions, like you were addressing earlier, it's really they give the wise person of the group whatever we're going to be called until we're at an age where we can name ourselves or take on a new name for new goals.
So how can changing your name influence or change your path?
Well, it's like you're being bombarded then and reinforced with a different vibration. And just as you changed your last name once you no longer had to hold the energy for the family, I did the same thing. I held it until my kids were of an age where they could hold it for themselves. And then I changed it. And my whole world changed after I changed it, because our last names literally tell us who are we going to bring into our world. What kind of people are we going to bring into our world? So not only were you releasing the pattern, you were also saying, now I'm ready for this type of a person to come and influence me in my world. So we have both nature and nurture. Our nature is our first name, and our nurturing, or who we're led to be in our influences, from our last name. And the middle name, if you have one, is where you change and you go into when you're under stress.
Oh, interesting. So what do you see as the influences of a woman taking on her husband's surname as opposed to hyphenating or not taking it on at all?
When a woman doesn't take it on at all, she's literally saying, I wish to maintain the influence of my original family. And therefore, we're going to be blending these 2 families, but the kids are going to get exposed to both types of family settings, both the woman, how she grew up, and the man, how he grew up. Then, when a woman takes on the husband's name, she's literally saying, we are going to follow the tradition of the husband in this family and his family settings. Now, we may tweak it a little bit with the woman, but we're really going to follow his family traditions. When you hyphenate it, you're saying you want both. When you absolutely refuse to go by any part of his last name, you're literally saying, I'm going to hold my own, and the children are going to have to see like two separate systems and then pick and choose for themselves. It's no longer blended.
Interesting. Do you have any personal thought on which is most advisable?
No, not one. No one is better than another. I think intuitively we know what is best for us, and we need to hold to that.
Perfect.
Because all of our obligations is to know ourselves well, and then to honor and assist in being responsible to other people, to assist them in knowing who they are to the best of their ability. But it's not our responsibility to ever tell somebody else who, what to be and how to lead their lives. And so it's just which kind of options are you presenting so that your children have choices.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. It's so nice to be able to let go, relinquish, and not feel responsible for other person's path and just trust it, isn't it?
Well, I really think we're doing harm when we're imposing our own belief systems on somebody else. On the other side of that, though, I think we're doing a great service when we're saying, here are some other ideas that you may wish to consider, and have those ideas, pick them apart, take them in, don't take them in. But in other words, just be aware that there's more out there than what you may be seeing. And that's how I look at Neimology Science. It literally so accurately portrays different qualities and characteristics, and then it's up to you. How do you want to play those qualities and characteristics? But at least you can identify why you're doing what you're doing, so that you have more choices on, do I want to continue this? Do I want to go for the challenge side of it and wipe that out? Do I want to go for the gift side of it and really develop it? Totally up to you.
So this brings me into my next question. Why do you suppose some people hate their names, and what advice do you have for them?
Well, I think when someone hates their name, they don't really know what it means. They think they know what it means, or they have been imposed somebody else's meaning on top of their name. Because so many people call me and they hate their names and they want to change it. And by the time I'm through explaining what the name meant, a great deal of them say, oh, I want to keep my name. Now I get it. Or they have added understanding. Another reason somebody may hate their name is because someone's made fun of it when they're earlier, and so they've attached a negative viewpoint. Or they've gotten down here and they said, it's not what I thought it would be like, and so I want to change. I want to rewrite it. I'm the author of my own book of life, and so now that I'm here, I thought it would be one way, but it's different, so now I need to adapt and make some changes.
Speaking of author, I'm an author of two really disparate genres, and at the advice of my publicist, I developed a pen name for one. And just as a working example, how would you see this affecting the writing, and how may the nature of the writing have been influenced by my choice of name?
What is your pen name?
Kahira O'Donnell.
Okay, what's really interesting is your pen name says, I'm an excellent writer and it comes naturally to me, which you don't have that in the name that you regularly go by. So your pen name is actually making it easier for you to write, and it's also saying you're going to remember my writing. I'm going to be known for this. So it literally puts in the qualities. It says, okay, I'm going to broadcast this out to the world that I've done a good job and this can be helpful. And with your regular name, it's a wise woman, but it's not a broadcast. It's a pulling it in. You come to me and I'll share my wisdom. Where your pen name is saying, I'm going to you and sharing, and you're going to love this.
That is amazing. And you did that so fast.
Well, I've been doing this a lot of years. I don't expect others to do it as quickly as me, even though some of my students are getting almost there. I mean, I'm really pleased with them.
Yeah, that's amazing that you can do it that quickly. What influences, and I have about a minute for this, or half, what influences do family names have, do you see great similarity between people with the same names? So family line names, the juniors.
Well, some of the things will be the same. If we can do a fast example, there's a lot of last names that end with an S-O-N, like Wilson and Johnson and, Millerson. And anyway, there's a lot of those. And the minute the name ends in an S-O-N, it means the individual needs to leave home to really find out who they want to be, because their morals and ethics were imposed upon them. So they need to leave to find themselves, what they want to keep, what they want to change, who they really want to be, and then they can come back home and be that person and be strong enough to hold their own.
Oh, that's great. We're going to have to take a break, and I want to pick up with that on the other side. We'll return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Would you like to hear more? Previous broadcasts of innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is SHARON Lynn Wyeth, author of Know the Name, Know the Person, and How a Name Can Predict Thoughts, Feelings, and Actions, and Know the Name, Know the Spirit, Discover Your Contact with God in Your Name. Her website is www.knowthename.com. Sharon, we were just going into how similar names might manifest similarly. So say, for instance, we were talking about the end, you were telling me about the end of particular surnames. What about if a son is a junior or a daughter is named directly after an aunt or a mother? What effect do you see happening there?
It means that they've got the same ingredients to work with and they've got the same influences. You still have free will choice. And what's going to make the difference is what the parents' names are. So that if a reading is being done on someone, you're not only asking for that person's birth name, all the nicknames and other names that they've gone by, ending with the current name, because you can literally see the development of the personality and also what the soul wants. What happens is you also ask for the parents' birth names. So you can see the influence from both parents along with the last name, which indicates the influence from the community. And so they're going to be a lot alike, but they may make different choices based upon who their parents were and what that teaching was. But it's like saying that you're starting in the kitchen and you all have the same ingredients to start with, and then you're going to make different choices. Do you want to make a quiche? Do you want to make an omelet? What do you want to make out of those same things?
I love that analogy. That really describes it well, doesn't it? Is it the same like you come in with a particular horoscope, but if you don't subject yourself to the horoscope, it can be the tides you ride rather than being subject to it? Is it kind of like that?
Well, I always think that the horoscope is the outline of your life, and then you have a choice, if you're knowledgeable of it, to say, I'm going to flow with the tide and go in this direction because I like it, or I'm going to get in the canoe and row against the tide and go in my own direction because I'm going to override that which I had written previously by writing my new book. And you write your new book of life making different choices.
Gotcha. What about the practice of the many indigenous tribes that we talked about, where they have the shaman go into a trance and divine the child's birth name, or others would draw the name from the first omen they experienced at the time of birth, say, for instance, rolling thunder or running deer? Would you speak to that practice and how it affects the effects differ from parents giving the name?
Well, the incoming soul impresses upon the one naming them. So if the shaman is going into a trance or into a special sacred space and able to receive the name, then the incoming soul is going to impress upon the shaman because that's the one that's going to be naming them. The soul can tell who's out there in this particular culture that does the naming. Just like in Turkey, it's the oldest male relative in the family. It's not the parents unless that husband is the oldest male relative. And so every group has their own ways of naming, and the soul is aware, so they're going to impress upon that particular person. When they're doing it according to an omen, they're attempting to match the astrological signs and vibrations of that time with the omen, so at least there's consecutiveness or continuity to start that person on their pathway from the time that they're born until they decide which aspects do they want to emphasize by picking their own name later.
Got it. Would you mind going into the use of nicknames and how it influences a person?
When we allow ourselves to be called by a nickname, we are literally saying to the person who is now calling us the nickname, it's okay that I'm going to morph some of who I am, not show you some, show you other things that you want to see so that it's easier for you to like me and for us to get along. So we look at which parts of us are being accepted by that particular person. So during a reading, when a nameologist is looking at the names and the nicknames, they're saying, whoever called you this particular nickname, these are the parts of you they wanted to see, and these are the parts of you that they did not want to see. And so they didn't reinforce them. So let me give an example. How many parents nickname their kids from their regular name and put a Y on the end? Like Becky and Robbie and Billy and all those names that all of a sudden have a Y on the end that wouldn't normally. The Y on the end says, be the chameleon, get along, figure out how everybody else is so that you can get along with everybody around, and you need to morph and be a people pleaser and become the parts of you that I want to see, and only show me those parts.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm really glad I asked that one. I'm not going to be nicknaming people anymore. It's one of my bad habits. Have you ever found a person whose name really does?
When we call them their birth name.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We honor someone when we call them their birth name, because we're really, with our vibration of the sound, reinforcing that all of them is acceptable and all of them can be reinforced and loved. They are totally lovable for who they choose to be.
That's really a beautiful point. Have you ever found a person whose name really doesn't line up with their expression? And if so, why do you think that was?
I have. I have, very much so. And sometimes it's because of the job. Like, one of the times it was a very public figure, and that person, if she was going by her regular birth name, would have been eaten alive in the profession. And for her to be able to attain where she was, she had to take on some qualities and characteristics that really were not in her name. Other times, I feel like people are just going off path, but what happens is something will happen somewhere in the lifetime where then they'll come back on path, or they'll have that choice.
So is there a history to deciphering names, or did you have to develop the whole thing on yourself from the get-go?
Well, I developed this whole thing from the get-go. Trial and error and testing and trying it out and getting massive amounts of lists of names and observation skills of what have I noticed about this person, what have I noticed about that person. And it was wonderful because I knew a ton of people in high school, because I came from a school of over 2,000 students, and there were 680 in my graduating class, and I knew all of them. So I had all that data in my head, and then I was teaching both during the day, 150 to 185 students, and at night I would have college classes. So I had a huge database to work from, and I would put down everybody's name and observation qualities and characteristics that I had observed, and then started matching and looking for the patterns. However, the science of names have been around forever. You look at Genesis in the Bible, and one of the first things that happens is that God comes in and renames Abram and Sarai, and names them to Abraham and Sarah, gives both of them an AH combination. The AH in my system says you're now on mission for God. So your life is here to help others more so than to help yourself. Then you watch how Jacob's name gets Israel, and the is for Isis, and the Ra is for Ra, the Egyptian god, and the El is for the Elohim. And it's literally saying the Father, Mother, God. And so it's a oneness. And when he gets his new name, and it's like pull everybody together into oneness, all these dispersing fractions. And as you watch Paul to Saul and all the name changing in the Bible, and people knew what they were doing. Think about it when Moses saw the burning bush and he could ask anything. And the first thing he asks is, what are you called? Knowing that if he could know the name, then he would know all about being. So
that's amazing.
The difference is I think it's been held in secret, and we now get little paragraphs or bleep blinds on this is what this name means. But to my knowledge, no other system says, and this is how you got there.
Right. It's just amazing what you've created there, and the accuracy is just mind-boggling. How does the accuracy hold true across languages?
It does in most languages. Every once in a while you need to tweak. The example I like to give is in German. In our language, when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. In German language, when two vowels go walking, the second one does the talking. And so if you have a German name, instead of interpreting the say an IE that's written in the name, you would look up the EI because the E has more dominance. There's a few tweaks like that from different languages, and I put it all in the book under the what if chapter.
I like that, what if.
Happens.
There are some languages that have sounds that others do not. Have you run into that, and how do you work with it?
Well, you're pulling in the sounds of the letter that it makes. So let's say your name is Zena, and that's a Z sound, but it's spelt with an X. So then you're going to interpret the X for the characteristics, but you're going to give it the flavoring of what the Z characteristic is.
Gotcha.
So
well, we're gonna have to take another quick break. I want to pick up with this topic on the other side, and we will be back on the flip side of this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is SHARON Lynn Wyeth, author of Know the Name, Know the Person, How a Name Can Predict Thoughts, Feelings, and Actions, and Know the Name, Know the Spirit, Discover Your Contact with God in Your Name. Her website is www.knowthename.com. SHARON, what were we talking about? I have a real good question for you here. I want to start out with, where can people find these great books?
Just about anywhere. If your bookstore doesn't carry it, they can definitely order it. It's in some of the Barnes & Nobles. It's definitely on Amazon. It's on my website, knowthename.com. A lot of trendy, what I call trendy bookstores or stores that carry eclectic gifts will have Know the Name, Know the Person.
Fantastic. So this is a good one. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So does our name influence our expression, or does our innate expression influence our names?
I think we exist before our name, and so if the soul is impressing upon somebody what they want to be called, it means they exist first, and the name complements it.
Okay.
And what I found very interesting for people that believe in reincarnation is that the middle name represents the last lifetime on the earth. And if the last lifetime got cut short because of a war or a car crash or something else, that often there will be no middle name, or if there were so many years on the other side that the last life is really irrelevant, then there's no middle name. But if someone has a middle name, it's literally telling you what the last life was. And in Teresa Caputo's last book, she's the medium from Long Island, she literally gives an example of this in her last book, and my friends were all calling me up going, look, she's saying the same thing you've always said. So we carry over from one lifetime to another, and we have new names when we're coming in because we have a new plan, and yet we're carrying the knowledge with us in our middle name from what we've already learned.
So if you come without a middle name, you're kind of freed up in a certain way as well. Is that correct? In other words, you're not as subject to what's gone before?
Unless your life was cut short. If your life was cut short in the previous life because of war or car accident, you'll probably have the same first name you had in that life in this lifetime so that you can carry on. And if otherwise, it means it's totally irrelevant. So either way, it's like you don't have any morphing of who you are. When you're under stress, you're exactly the same as when you're not under stress.
Oh, that's
you
real
have
interesting.
Less things dealing with.
Really interesting. How can numerology science help people better understand each other?
Well, with Neimology Science, you can compare two names, and you take out the compatible letters, and you see what's left. And whatever is left, as one person is looking at another, you're looking at those letters that are left, and you're saying, oh, those are the things about that person that I'm not aware of or not in congruence with or have a harder time dealing with. And so as you're looking at that and you're comparing names, sometimes all the letters fall out. It means those two can blend together just beautifully. And when letters are left, you're saying, this is my challenge in this relationship. Am I willing to have this person teach me those things or show me those things so that I can accept them, or am I going to be in rejection of those things and therefore reject the person?
And that's really a choice, not a fate. Is that correct?
Absolutely a choice, because we have the choice. We're all one, if you look at it. We're all beings on this planet. We all basically want the same things. We want an education. We want to be able to provide for our families, and we want to live with a roof over our heads, and we want to have food to eat, and we want to have a good time besides working. I mean, we all want that around the globe, everywhere we go. And if we're all part of the same one, we always have a choice. Are we going to accept all of us and everybody else, or are we going to reject parts of us and thus parts of everybody else?
So would you say the name reflects the divination of spirit that we decided to express this time?
Absolutely, yes. That's an excellent way of putting it.
So you come from the all that's one, and this is what you're bringing to dance with this time, depending on what lessons you want or what you want to achieve?
What you want to share and what you want to learn. Because in every name it says, here's my talents, that's what I came to share, and here's my challenges, that's what I came to learn. And the only reason I call them a challenge is because some learnings take us more time and effort, and others come easily, but we can make them a big challenge or a little challenge.
What would you say is the greatest gift that you personally have gleaned in the process of developing Neimology Science?
Absolute love for everyone. And I just see everyone as a beautiful expression of the one. And the coolest thing is the minute you know Neimology Science and you're talking with somebody, because you can talk with them in their communication style, which lands in the first vowel of the name, everybody says, oh, I want you as my new BFF. You know, and I think that's what we're all here to do anyway, is help each other and help hold the energy for each person as they're going through struggles and having a hard time believing in themselves. And if we can see them for who they are, it makes it okay for them to express that and find themselves and know themselves better.
So we're in agreement with the true essence of the person. Is that correct?
Correct. And what else are we really doing? Each one down here is learning to know self better. And we do that from internal reflection and from outward reflection when others give us their opinions. And then we can take that opinion or not, but we can listen to it, and then we can inwardly inflect on it. And so we're really down here, I feel like we're down here to learn how to love every part of self and remember who we truly are, and then to assist each other in doing the same.
So we might take on a name that reflects the parts of ourselves we have yet to accept in any given lifetime?
I don't think it's that we have yet to accept, it's that we haven't developed.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. In closing, do you have something you'd like to share with our listeners?
The greatest gift we can each give each other is to accept from everybody for who they are, and our names help us do that. So when someone says, "Who are you?" and you answer with your name, you can answer with pride and with esteem and with honor, and the same thing that you're giving to everybody else by calling them what they wish to be called. It's really a way of honoring one another.
And what about the tone of voice we use when we say someone's name? So like when I was in trouble, the way Gwilda was pronounced was totally different than if I was going to receive praise.
You know, that's an interesting thing, because what I have noticed over the years is sometimes people are kind of floaty, or they're kind of not in their bodies grounded, or they're off daydreaming. That's what I kind of mean by floaty. And they're not totally grounded. And when people use a stronger voice, it literally grounds the person back into basic reality. And if you're watching the beta waves and the alpha waves and the theta waves, we're going into theta when I say that we're not really grounded. Okay, we're kind of airy-fairy. We're in theta waves, which is our natural place to be. And the minute somebody says our name with emphasis, it causes the brain to go into alpha and beta waves. And we go to school to learn how to be in beta waves, by the way. That's what school is all about. How can we teach everybody to get into the beta wave? And so how somebody says the name literally influences which wavelength they're now using, which frequency in their brain.
That speaks of the power, doesn't it? You know, time flies, and we're just about out of it, Sharon. I just want to thank you so, so much for being on the show and bringing your wisdom and for developing this gorgeous form.
You know, thank you. But that's my gift to the world, just like every single person in the world has a gift for the rest of us.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. Our guest this hour has been Sharon, and her website is www.knowthename.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love, and embrace your spirit name.